Hey, 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 everybody. I am back again, and this time we have a basket case saw. So this is somebody who is a do-it-yourselfer. He wants to do most of the work himself. Unfortunately, he does not have the tools to split the case on this 572. So that is why it is here. He wants new bearings put in to the case. He's provided the bearings. He did not provide me a gasket, so I don't know if we're going to be pulling this back together, if he's going to be pulling it back together himself. I'll have to call him on that. But what we're going to have to do here is figure out kind of where he is at with the teardown process. The coil's still here, flywheel's gone, clutch is pulled out. We still have the oil lines in here, which that's not a big deal. As you can see, the reason he's doing bearings is the ball bearings are missing on that side. It's not supposed to be like that. So we're going to work on getting this pulled apart here and work on splitting the case. We got this special tool here and then this tool here, which this is going to be fun. I can't find the screws that go with it, so we'll have to trial and error on that one here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the coil off of here, because the last thing I want to do is mess with these stinking auto-tune wires that so love to get caught in the flywheel. So we're going to pull that off so that's out of the way while I'm splitting this case. And I'm going to kind of talk you through it. Like I said, these are tools that you have to get through Husqvarna. It's not one of those you can kind of rig something up to work on these. You need the special tools. This customer said he tried and the case would not split. So yep, it looks like he's pulled all of his case screws out, and since they're not in the box, I'm not pulling this back together now that I look at it, because it's not going back together without the crankcase bolts. So like I said, we're going to pull off the last few pieces that he has left on here and see what we can do. So I already have, like I said, he provided the bearings. I already have those in the freezer. Those I'm trying to get cooled down as much as possible so that metal shrinks just enough. And then I'm going to actually use a heat gun to heat the case up to help it expand a little bit. So in theory, it never goes according to plan. Everything is going to slide right into place, nice and easy peasy, no fighting, no having to knock the bearings back out and try again. That's the plan. That's what we're going with. So, yep, he did miss one. So this actually has right here is another crankcase screw that's behind your coil. So he did miss that one. So even if he tugged and pulled and pulled and tugged, this was not going to come apart. So we're going to pull that one out. There are, let's see if I can count these correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why do I feel like there should be one more? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, there are 6 crankcase bolts holding this all together. All right, so we have the last one out. We're gonna pull, this is our carburetor plate, pull that off of there. And I'm gonna pull these oil lines out just so they're not in the way here. Get those pulled out here. Okay, so we are going to start with the clutch side of the crankshaft. That's the one we're taking off here first. So we are going to drop the tool on here. And this sets across your bar studs. And we'll take our bar nuts here. And go swipe some from stock. We'll tighten these down, and then we are going to get this sucker pulled off of here in theory. Now, if all goes well, everything's going to come out nice and pretty, and I'm not going to struggle with getting bearings off the crankshaft. So, we are going to go ahead and pick that case right up. Look at that. Look how slick that came right up. Usually I fight with it and like break my knuckles and all that good stuff. So that came off super easy. Let's hope the other side is just as easy. Boy, I meant business. I didn't want those coming off of there. Yeah, they all definitely do not come apart that easily. Not by a long shot. Okay, so this is our clutch side. That's what the inside looks like. You can see the ball bearings, half of them are missing, the seal's gone. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm waiting for my parts washer to warm up here, and we're gonna get this cleaned up and get all that gook off of it. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the other side. It's been sitting here a while. I haven't done too many cases on 572s. So you have two pieces. You have horseshoe piece, and you have this piece that lines up to it. Horseshoe piece goes on the inside of the crankcase. This piece is going to go on the outside, and this is where you're going to put pressure to push the crankshaft through. Now, are these available aftermarket? I honestly have no idea. I know I spend a small fortune trying to keep all of these parts, tools in stock, because you know we can't use the same tool for multiple things. We come up with a new generation, and we got to change one of the tools, so then I have to buy a whole new set of seal tools and crankcase tools, all that good stuff. Can't just keep it the same. You gotta keep changing it. So I have quite the collection of tools from over the years. And apparently I have the drops today to boot. that released enough. I've been kind of putting this one off because it actually gives me a little bit of anxiety not to do it start to finish. It's like, I don't know, like all the pieces there, is something missing? I'm not the one to take it apart, and I'm not the one to see it through to put it back together. So that always gives me a little bit of anxiety. That's why I kind of have been procrastinating on this one. All right, so we have everything tightened down here. And we are going to go ahead and I don't like the way that's in there. Yep, this side has no intention of coming out as easy as the other side. So sometimes in the garage I have to improvise a little bit because I just don't have that upper body strength like the guys might have. So I was not able to actually twist this by hand. I actually kind of went off camera for a few minutes trying to find some sort of breaker bar, something that would give me enough leverage to twist it. Nothing worked. I'm going to fully admit that. It just wasn't going to happen. So I got the bright idea. I'm going to put the twisty part, yes, very technical term, in a vise, and I'm going to actually use the case because I have more leverage this way. So I'm going to go ahead and finally get this crankshaft spun off of here. In theory, here we go. No, don't come out of there. I got a customer. I will be right back. Okay, we're gonna keep twisting. Pretty sure there's some movement here. At least I hope so. Yeah, it's a hard pill for me to swallow sometimes when I have to. Oh, and there we go. We're out. Do we think the bearing came out? We'll see. But sometimes it's a little bit of a hard pill for me to swallow to admit that, and there we go. But unfortunately, that bearing came off with the shaft, so I am going to have to pull that off of there. But hey, we got it out of the case. That was more work than it needed to be. All right, so I just gotta flip this camera around so I can go back to the other side of my bench here, and I will show you what the inside of this one looks like. Okay, so now that I have a little bit of a disaster area here, we are going to get the tool pulled off this case. We're gonna get that bearing punched out of that case on the crank, or on, I'm sorry, on the clutch side. All right, and that's what we're looking at for the flywheel side. Put your tools back together so you don't lose the bits and pieces. So like I said, this is not something where we are graciously given these tools. We have to buy all of these individually. So replacing them is not necessarily something on my list of things to do. Would love it if Husky would provide these tools for us. That'd be great. Because it gets expensive. Each time they bring out a new saw, I'm having to buy a new tool. And I am all about buying new tools. Like, yeah, I love hanging out on the Snap-on truck. All about it. But it gets a little daunting when it's literally for one warranty thing and I will never use it again. So that's pretty daunting. All right, so now we are going to, I gotta go round up a few more tools to get the bearing punched out, to get the bearing pulled off the crank shaft. We're gonna get this cleaned up here. Ooh. 1, 2. I'm just checking all of our bits and pieces. We've got these 2 pieces here as far as for our guides. We got this little guy here we're going to pull out so it doesn't get lost. So I'm going to get it cleaned up here, and then we are going to heat it up and knock the new bearings in. So like I said, I need to go grab some punches and hammers and blocks and whatnot to get set up for the next part of this. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, so now we are to the point where we need to heat this case to 200 degrees Celsius in order to be able to get that bearing punched out. So heating the case actually takes quite a bit of time. I got a cold metal bench and it's not exactly warm in the garage. So we're to 200 degrees Celsius, and we're going to go ahead and get the bearing punched out here. This is just a piece off of the set that actually pulls the crankshaft back through, but it fits pretty close to getting the bearing out. And the case is a little warm, so that's why I'm kind of pulling my hands back here, but got the bearing out, and we are going to go ahead and start getting these new bearings put back in. So I don't know if there's actually a right way or a wrong way, but this is how I set mine up. Is I just use 2 2x4s and then I lay some of our shop rags over it. It just adds a little bit of cushion when you're hitting it with a hammer. So I have the bearings out of the freezer, and yes, I have 2 ice packs to keep the bearings in between to keep them as cold as possible while I'm reheating this case. So I just kind of sandwich those in, and we're going to go ahead and heat the case back up to 200 degrees Celsius. And then we'll get the bearings put in. Okay, we're getting pretty close to 200 degrees Celsius here. So you do want to add a little 2-cycle oil to the outside of the bearings just to help with lubrication of them sliding down into the case. So you have the cold, which has made the bearings a little bit smaller, the heat, which has expanded the case. Trick is make sure you get that bearing in there nice and even and centered so it's not kind of tipped off to one side. And we're going to go ahead and take that makeshift bearing insertion tool. Another thing to remember is we're coming from the inside of the case here, and we want to make sure the seal is on the correct side. You don't want to have to take this bearing back out. So we're going to go ahead and tap it down in until it is flush with the inside of the crankcase. Okay, so we've got the bearing in there and nice and flush with the crankcase, and we're going to take this warm booger and we're going to lay it out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and start on the second side. Again, we're heating the case to 200 degrees Celsius, and we still have that bearing in between our ice packs. Okay, so have the case to 200 degrees Celsius again, and we're going to get the oil around on the bearing. We're going to drop the bearing. We're going to slide the bearing in, and hopefully it slides down as easy as the other one did. And this one is going to take a little more work to get down into the case. That case cooled off just enough in between for that to slide down smoothly, but we got it in. Yay. Just going to even it off around the edges here. Make sure everything's nice and flush, and then we will be done with this bearing installation. So I have both bearings installed that the customer had provided for us, and at this point it is going to get sent back to the customer. He's going to go ahead and take care of the reassembly process. So that is inserting bearings into a 572 case. Big things to remember is 200 degrees Celsius to heat the case up to, get those bearings nice and cold, and 9 times out of 10 they'll slide right in for you.